Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets get blown out. The team gives no effort, but even better, Mikal Bridges looks like he's playing some of his worst ball yet. We dive in coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all those great platforms, and let you know this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And Doug, our show is going to be the thing that the team on the court tonight will play back in the locker room and say, this is where quality starts, because they obviously don't know what that looks like anymore.
It's a rough patch, man. They go into Indiana and stay with them here for a little bit, but in the end, kind of let go of the rope, and it ends up in another blowout. And this is just wash, rinse, repeat with this team. At this point, it's very hard to kind of watch them on a night-to-night basis. We're ride or die with this team all the way through, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are going to be the same. But this is a labor of love, no question about it. This is a very difficult team to watch. They struggle with effort. They have enormous talent gaps. Even the talent they do have is underperforming pretty much across the board, and especially from the guys like Mikal Bridges, where they need it the most. In this game, once the Pacers started sort of rolling downhill in the second half, it got pretty ugly pretty quick with some frankly, just embarrassing plays by the Nets. Embarrassing, not paying attention stuff that just really shouldn't happen, like full court turnover on an out of timeout on just like a strip and steal. That should just never happen. And this is one little play, but it's sort of endemic of what's really been happening with this team, which is they don't have the talent. And when you don't have the effort either, we can write the ending, and we could probably not have to tune in for 48 minutes to figure out what it's going to be.
121-100 is the final here. The Nets led by 1 point in the third quarter. Wouldn't have thought about that. Nets were only down by 8 entering the fourth quarter. And yet, as you say, this one gets away from you very quickly. We'll talk about other sequences. We'll talk about this team, as is the case down the stretch from a high level. But Mikal Bridges right now is the focal point, because it just continues to be going the wrong direction with him. We talked about this in a full episode discussing the state of where his game is right now. Fatigue, mental wear down from being on this team and having it play the way it is. Any combination of things that you want to use as valid or invalid excuses, it just does not look good right now. And I know we've talked about where his value stands and how this probably isn't hurting it. I guess it's probably not, but it can't be helping it. And this is another really bad game, and arguably one that, remember, just as a reminder here, we're staying focused on Mikal Bridges. The Nets are 3 games back from the Atlanta Hawks, and the Hawks play the Clippers tomorrow night. Like, whether or not you think they're going to make the play-in, which we don't, it's still, you win the game against the Pacers, you may be a loss away from only being 2 games back, and you need Mikal Bridges to be the leader on the court for this team. He gave you absolutely nothing once again.
He made 1 field goal in 29 minutes. I don't really know. There's no defending it at this point. That's for sure. You can't really, whether you want to sort of like figure out what the problem actually is. Is it fatigue? Is it system? Is it just being miscast? Is it a combination of all those things? It's really hard to tell. But you said about where his value stands. I don't know how much it has been hurt. It for sure, but you're right. There's no way it's been helped.
Right.
There's no chance. Because even now he doesn't even look like, he barely looks like a great role player.
Yeah.
Right. And we know he has another sort of level to his game. I think he's shown for enough of his career that he has that. So I'm not really worried about that part being gone forever. But the part where these numbers are so troubling, and tonight he had, and I kind of saw this coming. I did a spot on another podcast where we did a little bit more of a preview as a Pacers podcast, and I was he's going to struggle in this matchup. Guys like Nesmith are going to Siakam. They're going to give him problems. Nesmith just ate him alive. He couldn't do anything. The few times where he did try to dribble drive, he either was stopped right away or stopped 6 steps into it and
Yeah.
just had to turn around, back out. No separation at all. The shot he barely even got off any shots. He only took 8 shots from the field total in 29 minutes. This has been a really, really bad run for him. It's got to be time for a rest, you would think. He's just played a ton of minutes. The Iron Man thing is what it is. I don't think the fans care at all about it. He probably does, and I commend that because we live in a day and age where not everyone plays every game, and if you can, you probably should. I just don't know what it's serving at this point. I also don't know what 1 game rest would help either. We're kind of caught in between here, but there's no defending the play on the court. He's been, and I have some numbers in a second, but he's been worse than below average for what the expectation was.
Oh, 100%. And listen, you said what would 1 game arrest do? I'm not talking about 1 game arrest. I'm talking about multiple games, right? Because no matter which way you want to look at it, if it is just that wear down from playing as many games as he had, what is he playing for? And you mentioned, obviously he cares about it and he'll say, as every player should, I give my team a better chance to win basketball games, but the production or lack of production on the court over the majority of these recent games would suggest that even though this team isn't great and they're not terribly deep and Mikal Bridges is one of their better players, you might just be better suited taking him out of the equation because, as we say, when you are a player of a certain quality, then the expectation is you need to produce to a certain quality as well. And if you're not going to do that, you may just be better off going with a player that's less experienced or going with a player that doesn't necessarily have the same quality of basketball on both ends of the floor. Right now, as it stands, and we'll get into those numbers here in a second, I would say that when we talk about value for Mikal Bridges, one of the things that I believe is getting exposed here is that he's probably closer to being a 3-and-D-ish model of player than he is to being a two-way player, right? We used to think about him being at both ends of the floor, but that dribble drive, especially against bigger matchups, you saw it again tonight, he gets eaten alive on those. So I think even in the best version of what he is on a better team with superstar talent, it's probably a guy that's off ball for big stretches of the game and then finds his pockets at the right time, knock down a shot. And if you're constructed the right way, then he can give you some higher value on the defensive end. But right now, he's a mid-tier contributing player on a roster, even if you have really good talent ahead of him. And I just wonder if it is fatigue or if we are just getting an expanded sample size that's starting to expose some of the weaknesses in his game. In a second, we'll talk about those other troubling stats here for Mikal Bridges and then his team overall, because guess what? Everybody not named Cam Thomas might as well not have shown up for the game tonight. We'll talk about that in just one moment.
Before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. Look, if you're hiring for your small business, you got to find quality professionals that are right for the role. You got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is the tools to help you find the professionals for your team faster, and you're going to love this for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It's a vast network, more than 1 billion. That was 1 billion with a B. Professionals makes it the best place to hire, gives you the access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all this while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring so easy when you have that many quality candidates. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That's less than a day, folks, for all of you math folks out there. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Post that job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so as we roll along on the post-game podcast for the Brooklyn Nets, obviously reminding you to get us over on YouTube, get us over on the podcast feed. We greatly support it, even as the Brooklyn Nets as an organization are a sinking ship. The Locked On Nets podcast, we're raising our own tide over here, everybody. We talk about Cam Thomas here in a second because his game gives you a different type of sample size here. But what are the troubling stats when it comes to Mikal Bridges over this recent run?
Yeah, since the All-Star break, I just kind of picked that as sort of a dividing line about where really nothing in particular, except it's sort of a nice, easy break. Coming out of the All-Star break, since then, he's shooting 40% from the field, 33% from three, 75% from the line. Over the last 7 games, he's averaging 50. So I backed out 2 games because he has a crazy high game and a crazy low game in there. He has a 38-point game against Atlanta. So that's gonna help the overall numbers, but he has a 4-point game in there too. So I just took those 2 games out, right? It's hey, take the best and the worst out of here, and let's see. He's averaging 15 points a game. 15 points a game. And that's on a lot of minutes. He's playing the 35th most minutes in the league during that stretch. There's just no excuse for it at this point. He's just been well below average. He's been a below average basketball player and I mean, especially where not below average basketball player, but he's been significantly below average based on expectation, way below average for what the Nets need. And you just can't look at these numbers and be anything but like, frankly, alarmed. It's alarming based on sort of like what we saw for him last year. And this game, we felt a couple times like that was like, oh, it's not going to get worse than this. This one, I mean, at 2 points at halftime. Again, he made one shot for the whole game. And it wasn't like this kind of thing. I'd almost be more encouraged if it was 1 for 15 or something like that. I wouldn't be, but
in the old keep firing, because that's what I am. Like, because I'm
at least like the shots might have been there. But the most troubling thing in this one was the shots weren't even there against like a big sort of wing heavy defense. Naismith, Siakam, weak side help from Turner. And even, guys like this and Nembhard too, who's kind of gets after on defense. He had no chance. And that is, to me, the most troubling part is that there's a lot of things to worry about, but where you can't do anything on offense, it's so bad. I don't want to spend the whole time in this because Cam Thomas, I do think had a good game, and he's been really good since returning from injury. So it kind of sucks to like have to spend a lot of time all on this, but it's the problem is with Bridges, it's like a look to the future thing.
It's what he represents.
And the Nets have banked a lot
for this team. Yep.
The Nets have banked a lot on him being a lot better than this. And, they've said many times, like maybe he's not the superstar, but he can attract superstars. I don't know what this attracts. Like this has been not good. And when you're a superstar, you want to look for other guys that can kind of like take the load off. That's just not happening. It's not happening. And so they put so much cachet here, and it's just, it's gone as bad as you could possibly imagine, I think.
And actually, to your point, so let's contrast that here. Let's bring in Cam Thomas's night and then these last handful of games for him, because I think it matters in that superstar attracting qualities that maybe Mikal Bridges lacks. In this game tonight, obviously, Cam Thomas goes 32 minutes, 7 of 16, 2 of 6 from deep, gives you 22-point performance. Got to the line, was perfect from there as well. But in the last 4 games here for the month of March, he's also giving you 21, 29, and 31. He's averaging 48% from the field. He's knocking down 52%. That's 52% from beyond the arc, and giving you 27 points in this month. And the contrast here would be Cam Thomas is still getting to whatever level, right? We just had that discussion. Can he be a superstar potentially? And it's going to be a hard path, but he could do it. If I'm a superstar on the free agent market or thinking about leaving my team, when I look over at the Brooklyn Nets right now, I look at Cam Thomas and I say, oh, because you mentioned it there, who can take the load off my plate for a handful of possessions? Cam Thomas can do that. And what are we talking? We're talking about offensively, not defensively. We're always talking about on the offensive end. Who can buy me a couple of possessions off on that end of the floor? Cam Thomas can do that. And right now, Mikal Bridges is consistently showing you, I'm not going to be that guy. I can benefit off of your effort. I can benefit of what you do to force defenses to make difficult decisions. So Cam Thomas has had a nice run here for himself. And to your point, it's unfortunate that it's getting overshadowed by team struggles, but also by Mikal Bridges and what he's going through right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, we also have the choice. Like, we can start by talking about Cam Thomas and then go to Bridges, or we can talk about Bridges and go to Cam Thomas. I'm like, so we're,
there's behind the curtain here. We do create our own rundown for the podcast, but
yeah. And so, either way, it's kind of hard sometimes to know which one to start with. But with Cam, at least, look, since he can't return from injury, the Nets have won his minutes. Like they're plus 24 since he returned. He was only a -4 tonight in a game where they lost by 21, right? Like, so he had 22 points, like you said, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. The efficiency has pretty much been there. 48, not pretty much. It's definitely been there. Actually, if anything, like he's probably run bad a little bit at the line because he's 48% and 52% from 3, and then just 71% from the line. But he's been at everything you basically need and more. Been able to make some good read and react plays. He had a couple good reactions out of some blitzing defense tonight that I thought was still continue to be encouraging. And this is a tough matchup to do it against because this is a really, really big group in Indiana, and he's always going to struggle with that just because of his size. Yeah, no, he's just been good. He's easily been their best player. It's like not even close since he returned from injury. Thank goodness he came back. They're only 1-3 since that, but it's not any of his fault. And I'm still increasingly encouraged. It's just such a bummer that the level that he's playing at has not coincided with Bridges. It's coincided with Bridges doing almost nothing, right? Because they're 1-3 from in this stretch. and they really shouldn't be probably
Yep.
based on how well he's played, but they've just gotten so little elsewhere.
The other things with just there's a footnote on Cam Thomas that I've noticed that his communication on both ends of the floor, but again, the defense is always going to be about effort and less about his size and ability to really stop players. But like he went up and picked up like full court a little bit on inbounds plays. You see him signaling, which side he's going to be taking, who needs to be picking up another man. There does seem to be something in the Kevin Ollie era of this, and this could just be happening in the film room or whatever it is, where the basketball IQ or the system that's being run, we could probably say it's a both and, right? It just seems to be lending itself for Cam Thomas to understand what he needs to be doing, going both directions. So, to your point, could we have started with Cam Thomas's development continues to show really positive returns? Yes, we can. Yes, we could have. The issue would be here that you would like to say Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas are working so well in tandem together. Instead, it's one guy's disappearing and you're hoping the other player can carry the load. And even when we extend it out to this, team overall, whether it's the starting unit, we said this coming over from the trade. It's up and down with Schroeder, 31 minutes tonight, 4 of 13, obviously 2 of 4 from beyond the arc, 13 points, gave you 5 assists. It's a difficult effort in a game like this. It's probably even more damning that Mikal Bridges is falling down the pecking order of this team that doesn't have any of the superstars on it. And I think we'd start to have more confidence over these recent games in other guys based on performance per expectation. Mikal Bridges is continuing to fall well shy of that ledger, while other guys are at least hitting their mark, even if they're not getting wins.
Yeah, like Cam Johnson, I think has been decent here since returning, even coming off the bench. And so I guess like across the board, it wasn't even really kind of horrible. And this is why we end up kind of focusing him on him a little bit more. I think from the Cam Thomas point of view, I think
20-point game. Sorry, real quick, not to cut you off. A 20-point game from Mikal Bridges tonight, like consistent across a full 4 quarters. They're in the basketball game. Like that's the difference, right? Like whether they win or lose, fine, but they're in the basketball game every step of the way. And who knows, that 1-point lead in the third quarter, maybe you put a little more pressure on the Pacers because you're getting that pitch in effort. In some regards, you can make the case being down 8 going into the fourth quarter with the type of game that Mikal gave you, that should be put into the pretty impressive by everybody else, category, given what you're not getting from Mikal. Sorry.
And look, we talked about this in the last game too. Like he's made 6 total shots in the last 2 games, and this is Bridges, and I would say 3 of those were garbage time last game where he had made 2, and he kind of just got like late. The opposing defense was just kind of done playing right against Orlando, and he kind of got some easy buckets. And I hate to like just use the ones that don't count for my own narrative here, but he was mostly absent during that last game also, where he had made 2 shots through something like 28 minutes or somewhere around there. So like last game wasn't too dissimilar to this game, except that he just got a few, I would call garbagey time baskets near the end. Right. And yeah, like obviously if he scores that many points, they're in the game. But it's just, we seem so far from that. It feels impossible, honestly. Like it feels, and then they're going to go against Wembanyama here on Sunday. And that's just going to be another place where they're not going to be able to get to the rim at all. They already can't really get to the rim. And now you're going to face a 10-foot tall guy who blocks every single shot. And so good luck. This is just sort of where we are.
Coming up here in a second, other things that came out of this game was a lack of effort down the stretch by everybody. But beyond that, when we think about this season in totality, why are we not seeing more of the young players and more of a dedication to development here? We'll touch in on that topic underneath Kevin Ollie coming up here in just 1 second.
All right, before we get to that, make myself feel better. Talking about our friends over at Stitch Fix. You get that instant confidence boost. You get an outfit that makes you look really good. It fits really good. It's styled up just for you. That's what I am getting with Stitch Fix right now. I'm wearing Stitch Fix right now. They got the Flag and Anthem hoodie. I got 3 or 4 of these in the closet now. That's because Stitch Fix, you work with a personal stylist. They're going to send you a box of clothes based on the recommendations that you go through. You go through the checklist. They're going to get to know you, your sizes, your styles, all that other stuff. They're going to send you a bunch of different options. You try on the things you like, you keep it, send back what you don't want. They'll send you some more until they line it up perfectly. You're working with a personal stylist over there at Stitch Fix that learns what you want. And by the way, when these boxes come, it was like a family event when we get the Stitch Fix stuff coming. Barely taken it off since it came. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/locked-on. That's stitchfix.com/locked-on. stitchfix.com/locked-on.
All right, so as we tie a bow on the Brooklyn Nets loss 121-100 to the Indiana Pacers, who are holding on to the 6th seed, by the way. Beginning of this season, we talked with Tony East from Locked On Pacers. These were two teams that felt like they might have been in similar narratives coming into the year and what they wanted to accomplish. You don't need to look any further than the fact that the Pacers chose to go out and acquire Pascal Siakam in order to strengthen their opportunity to be as successful as possible in the postseason, where the Brooklyn Nets, I don't know, dumpster fire feels strong, but it's certainly not far off from that. Maybe the embers are there as the tires are getting stacked up. We also remind you to get over to WeGotNets.com. Sign up with your email for 5 stories in 5 days, all about the Nets history. That's 5 stories in 5 days, free with your email. Sign up over at WeGotNets.com. I got a problem with the rest of this team, though. I did say, well, if only Mikal Bridges had given you 20 points, we'd be feeling so much better about this game. Also, who was it? It was Halliburton that airmailed a 3/4 court pass inbounds to Shepherd in the 4th quarter of this game, up by 11, where nobody gave a crap about being back on defense. You mentioned a couple of plays earlier. I mean, the 4th quarter of this game, and I understand it gets away at a certain point, but effectively from midway-ish back into the 3rd quarter and then into the 4th quarter, everybody checked out. And it's just embarrassing. Like, I get it. Your team is struggling. You don't have the talent, but I'm surprised to see as many players basically collectively go, I mean, do we need the full 48? Can't we just call it 40 and get off the court? That part of it is embarrassing from a motivation, dedication, effort, energy standpoint.
I got multiple examples of this. So they have the inbound play out of the timeout where they basically get out transition. And then they come out of the timeout and they get an instant strip. Again, we started this off by saying this, it should never happen. They had the play that you're talking about, which was after a make transition dunk. I mean, that's nearly impossible to do that. Like they made the shot and no one runs back, and Shepherd just leaks on the run out and gets basically like a Sports Center style dunk on that one. They had another possession where, and I made note of this because I started thinking this. I was like, no one's trying. And it was a Siakam. It was a Siakam screen and switch. Claxton goes into sort of like a mini drop. Yeah. He completely blows by Claxton, and Bridges gets the most half-hearted dig ever into it. Like he just basically swings his right hand on a dig because he's protecting the strong side shooter. And then they go right from, so Siakam just gets a layup. No one tries. And then they go right from that into that next possession for the Nets. The Nets come out and Schroeder's going to pass it, I think to Bridges, and it just gets intercepted. Yeah. Because it was just a lazy pass around the perimeter. And I was thinking, oh, that's all. They gave up. They gave up. They don't care.
There was another one from the corner, too, not to need to add into it. Trendon Watford in the 4th quarter. He's basically at the foul line. It's a pass from the left corner to Trendon Watford at the foul line, and the ball gets lobbed 3 feet over his head effectively.
Yeah. It's just all these little plays. And I'm only going through these ones, or we're only going through these ones to highlight that when you can easily pick out 4, 5, 6, 7 plays that just show you that this is just not happening for this team, it's like a sad state of affairs. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, but if these guys are going to try, you might as well just get the Noah Clowneys of the world in, and let's just see something else, right? Because legit, what's the point?
No, then that is the thing that I did want to get to. It's I effort-wise, et cetera. We mentioned about, okay, Cam Johnson has looked better coming back off the injury, but what are we doing? Whether it's Jalen Wilson, specifically around Noah Clowney, because I think the pushback here would be, well, where's he going to fit into this when you have Nicholas Claxton and you have Day'Ron Sharpe, another non-shooter? It doesn't matter. One of them doesn't play. Day'Ron Sharpe doesn't get minutes. Somebody doesn't get. It doesn't matter. At this point of the season, with the record that you have, and this has been talked about, we say this about how they developed Cam Thomas and how you could have gotten him so much more minutes over the last 2 seasons to have him in a better position entering year number 3 and beyond. If we look back and Noah Clowney, and he already is going to be, is among the fewest rookie minutes, I don't know what we're doing. Because there are teams that have rookies that were drafted later than him that are contributing on teams that are making postseason plans right now. I just don't understand that. You can go watch the G League effort that Noah Clowney is putting in, some of those stat lines. It's not one-to-one translation, but there's more than enough work that's been done there where he needs to be playing at the NBA level. And even on, by the way, the Jalen Wilson note, obviously he came down to earth a little bit more here, but he showed you enough. This feels like 10 years ago when we said, hey, the effort is there. The ability to be an impact player is there. I want to see Cam Thomas, Jalen Wilson, Noah Clowney, You want to put two other guys in there, Nicholas Claxton, frankly, and maybe Dorian Finney-Smith, because at least he's a veteran that knows what job he's supposed to do on a possession-to-possession basis. I just don't understand what the Nets are doing here, trying to sell a bill of goods to a fan base that has very loudly communicated, we know it's not real. Like, you're not this playing tournament. It's a mirage. Get to what's going to help you another year or 2 years from now. They just seem so dedicated to putting out such a bad product. And frankly, making us have conversations about Mikal Bridges that we shouldn't be having, because you should be getting him a day rest every third game for the rest of the season to make sure that he gets himself back on track.
Yeah, and they're just not going to do it. Like, they're trying to, they tried to thread a needle. It hasn't worked. It's been laughably laughable misstep.
Rope through a needle that you would stitch your coat with.
Yeah, like they screwed this up. I think, and if they have an eye toward next year or an eye toward 2025, then maybe staying the course is worth it. But it gets increasingly more difficult to see that every day when it's like not really. It's hard to understand sort of like how it gets so much better, even if they were to add a superstar or two to this mix, right? And guys like Clowney, it'd be nice to see him. He's so young that losing a year of development, or he's getting in the G League, maybe it's just fine. He's played probably I did a quick eye test on this about like where he played, how many minutes he's played compared to other rookies. I mean, there's probably like 2 or 3 other guys that are like around the same level as him. Like Jet Howard has barely played. He went at 11. Jalen Hood-Schifino is basically out of it here at 17. And then, there was one more guy. Kobe Brown. But he goes at 30. I mean, basically every other first round pick has played lots to just like infinity more minutes than Clowney this year, except for Tariq Whitehead, but he's hurt, right? So only
the one would be a Brooklyn Net, yeah, of course,
yeah, right. And so nothing you can do about the injury, but but overall, it's like maybe it's trust the process and see it because you're just like a different team now with veterans. But the problem is the Nets have always seemed to have been, or have long seemed to have been, slow on this, even with guys they do have. We're looking at one in Cam Thomas, who was a head scratcher about why he wasn't playing for so long. And I guess when we look back at when you don't have many comps to draw from, you look back at the comps they have done it for, and we saw that it took them forever to get Cam Thomas in the mix. And so how can you think anything different with Clowney? Like, it's hard to trust that it's correct to like not play them when you've kind of shown that you've struggled with this in the past. So I want to trust that like they kind of know what they're doing with a still super young guy. And at the same time, like, what's the harm in just getting him out there at this point? The team's just not good.
And remember, too, my last note on this is you don't know what's going to happen with Nicholas Claxton. Is he going to be around here next year? So do you want to maybe be able to utilize Noah Clowney and have Day'Ron Sharpe, and that can be a part of what you look to do, right? Like that's
a great point. Like, maybe that would help inform your Claxton decision to some degree. That's right. Maybe that's the best point, actually.
Yeah, so rather than keep it a mystery for yourself, you could go ahead and explore that. And we understand he's lean and he's young. And then the other note here is just in the G League right now, Noah Clowney is knocking down almost 33% of his shots from beyond the arc on 3 attempts per game. They don't have a guy, whether or not they're all true fives or otherwise, that plays in the center position that has any perimeter game whatsoever. I'll take the risk of it looking a little bit weird and looking a little bit clunky to start if I can start to have Noah Clowney show what it looks like for the Brooklyn Nets and some of the guys, including Mikal Bridges, like what it looks like when you have a 5 that can stretch the court a little bit and also give you some size and give you some defensive value as well. We know that he's lean. We know that he has a long way to go here, but there's nothing wrong. Like, there's nothing wrong with going ahead and taking these minutes now. Jalen Wilson has played over 400 NBA minutes so far this season. Noah Clowney needs to start to chip away at that at some point here.
All right, we're going to get out of here. A little bit weird scheduling here. This episode hopefully will go up on Sunday. They do play against the Spurs on Sunday. We'll see about a post game on that one. We got some other scheduling possible issues with that one. So we'll get back to you on this one. But regardless, we'll come to here after the Pacers one and give you your thoughts. Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, all the other stuff. In the meantime, make sure you go to WeGotNets.com. Make sure you subscribe over on YouTube as well. WeGotNets.com. Subscribe where you listen on YouTube.
History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Why, that is Maya Angelou.
One of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.